Past Greats, the show that looks back on the lifetime of one of the greats from the past, who is no longer with us.
This is a short look at the life of Henry Ford, an American industrialist, the founder of the Ford Motor Company and sponsor of the development of the assembly line technique of mass production. Henry Ford was born July the 30th, 1863. He was the first of William and Mary Ford's 6 children. He grew up on a prosperous family farm. Henry's childhood was typical of the rural 19th century, spending days in a one-room school and doing farm chores. At a young age, he showed an interest in mechanical things. In 1879, a 16-year-old Henry Ford left home for the nearby city of Detroit to work as an apprentice machinist. Although he did occasionally return to help on the family farm, he remained an apprentice for 3 years and then returned home. During the next few years, Henry divided his time between operating and repairing steam engines, finding occasional work in a factory in Detroit, and overhauling his family farm's way of working, as well as being an occasional farmhand, which Henry did not like. Henry married Clara Bryant in 1888. Henry supported his wife and himself by running a sawmill. In 1891, Ford became an engineer with the Edison Illuminating Company. This event signified a decision by Ford to dedicate his life to industrial pursuits. He was promoted to chief engineer in 1893. This gave him enough time and money to devote his attention to his personal experiments on internal combustion engines. These experiments culminated in 1896 with the completion of his own self-propelled vehicle, the quadricycle. The quadricycle had 4 wire wheels that looked like heavy bicycle wheels, was steered with a tiller like a boat, and only had 2 forward speeds, with no reverse. Although Ford was not the first to build a self-propelled vehicle with a gasoline engine, he was, however, one of several automotive pioneers who helped America become a nation of motorists. After 2 unsuccessful attempts to establish a company to make automobiles, the Ford Motor Company was incorporated in 1903, with Henry Ford as vice president and chief engineer. The young company only produced a few cars a day at the Ford factory on Mack Avenue in Detroit. Groups of 2 or 3 men worked on each car, from components made to order by other companies. Henry Ford realised his dream of producing an automobile that was reasonably priced, reliable and efficient with the introduction of the Model T in 1908. This vehicle initiated a new era of personal transportation. It was easy to operate, maintain and handle on rough roads, immediately becoming a huge success. By 1918, half of all cars in America were Model Ts. To meet the growing demand for the Model T, the company opened a large factory in Highland Park, Michigan in 1910. The company began construction of the world's largest industrial complex in Michigan during the late 1910s and the early 1920s. The massive Rogue plant included all the elements needed for car production. By September 1927, all the steps in the manufacturing process, from refining raw materials to the final assembly line of the automobile, took place at the vast Rogue plant, characterizing Henry Ford's idea of mass production. Sadly, Henry Ford passed away on the 7th of April 1947 of a cerebral hemorrhage. He was aged 83. Although Henry Ford didn't invent the automobile, he developed and manufactured the first automobile that many middle-class Americans could afford to buy. His introduction of the Model T automobile revolutionized transportation and American industry, and his legacy still lives on through the Ford Motor Company, which is one of the biggest car manufacturers in the world. For these contributions and others, Henry Ford will go down as one of the all-time greats.